Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Coffee and Headlines. Today is, well, actually, to be honest with you, today is Monday, the 15th. And today is, I'm just a few hours away from going away on a short but well deserved trip. But you're actually watching this on Thursday morning, March 18th. That is correct, yes. So this corresponds to our Thursday morning pre-recorded show that I am putting together for you just so that we can keep the continuity of what we do here at Coffee and Headlines. If this is your first time watching, my name is Paco, and what we do here is we bring together headlines from local sources, from Mexican sources, sometimes from international sources, if the news have to do with Mexico in general, and certainly with Puerto Vallarta in particular. And we throw them into the mix, along with comments, headlines, questions, ideas, topics, anything that is crossing your mind that we can discuss and share with one another so that we can be a better nurtured, more enjoyable, and not more enjoyable, for us to enjoy our destination more as a community of English-speaking locals here in Puerto Vallarta. Of course, today we are not live, and I'm not looking at your comments and reactions, and I miss that. I miss that a lot because so much joy that I derive from the pleasure of putting these broadcasts together every single day comes from you. I mean, you make it possible as much as I do a lot of research and so forth and so on. Anyhow, I don't want to just ramble, although today I've decided we are going to do a Mexican culture ramble. And this comes from two very specific places. The first one being a remark that somebody shared with us a few days ago. And the second one giving you a glimpse of a little bit of the process that I go through when I am looking for interesting topics about Mexico to share with you. And in doing so, I would like to remind everybody, although Facebook thinks I'm a journalist or I am under the journalist category, and some people have praised the way I write, in reality, all I am is a curious guy that likes to think I'd like to think I'm resourceful, or as resourceful as my brain cells allow me to be. So I'm going to show you a little bit of writing that jumped at me, and then I want to show you some interesting websites that I found recently that I thought were really resourceful with interesting things for you to look at. But the beginning of the ramble today starts at a broadcast that we had just a few days ago. I think it was Thursday or Friday last week that somebody asked about gay pride here in Puerto Vallarta, and and we started talking about why gay pride is a loaded topic and whether it is a cultural event or a profit business or what it is or what it isn't. And that's not what today is going to be about. But a very kind person that was watching shared a comment that this person, I'd like to imagine, copied and pasted from a website that must be one of those websites where you obtain information about something. And I'm going to share this little bit of text that was shared with me. And here you have it. It's 3 sentences, actually. And this, I would imagine this came from either a website that is catering to gay travelers or a website that has information about Puerto Vallarta in general. And in my mind, there are so many things that make me cringe about these 3 sentences that I'd like to share my point of view with you. And of course, my point of view is not the definitive point of view. Everything is subject to discussion, agreement, and disagreement. But for example, the first sentence starts by saying, in the south of Puerto Vallarta, you will find the old town. And I know that a lot of people refer to certain parts of Vallarta as the old town. For starters, it's cringe-worthy to call it old town when it's really not that old. I mean, when you compare Puerto Vallarta with Philadelphia, Philadelphia is an old town, Also called the romantic zone. Well, the romantic zone, or the zona romántica, is a marketing phrase that was invented in the 80s to try to entice traditional families, or at least that's the story I've been told. It was the old brand of business owners in Colonia Emiliano Zapata, which is the actual name of the neighborhood, that decided, well, there's too many gays coming here. We might as well try to market this as a romantic zone for love and romance and for families. So Emiliano Zapata is not called Old Town. It is also not called the Romantic Zone. The tourist area favored by expats and foreigners. Well, I personally have an issue with the word expats, but I'm coming to realize that a lot of Mexicans do, because we're all immigrants when we go from one country to another. It seems like the only people that call themselves expats are, well, if you call yourself an expat, I wonder why you call yourself an expat. I spent 20 years living in the United States, and nobody ever called me an expat, and I didn't think of myself as an expat. I was an immigrant. And then the last part of that first sentence, expats and foreigners who want to soak up local traditions. Wouldn't it be nice if that was true? I mean, the Romantic Zone or the Old Town or Emiliano Zapata is now so much of a tourist zone that it becomes increasingly difficult to soak up local traditions in that particular neighborhood, which is why here at Coffee and Headlines, we love to branch out to other neighborhoods to see what we can find, because my hunch is that the vast majority of you would like to see other things that are closer to authentic Mexico, or as close as we're going to get here in Puerto Vallarta. Then the second sentence is also cringeworthy. The old Puerto Vallarta is also considered the gay neighborhood since 1980. 1980. I mean, what happened in 1980 that made this particular text writer think that something happened? And that's when, boom, all of a sudden the gay community arrived, and retired Canadians and Americans bought land and properties in order to create gay-friendly businesses. Well, no, that's not the way it goes. It is true that a lot of the gay history of our city is lost. And what I mean by gay history, I mean the local gay history, because there was a time in which, Puerto Vallarta didn't have the influx of foreigners. But that didn't mean that there were no homosexuals or lesbians in our city, and they were here and they carried on as best as they could, or to the extent that they could, given the traditions of our country. But as much as the gay community of retired Canadians and Americans would like to believe that they, or you, if the shoe fits, are the creators of our gay neighborhood or our gay community, well, that's not true. I think a lot of people started coming to Puerto Vallarta when they realized that this was a gay-friendly neighborhood. And that brings me to another issue. A lot of people think Puerto Vallarta is a gay destination. It's a city with a very friendly gay neighborhood, but it is also a city of 350,000 people, many of which are not gay, many of which have nothing to do with tourism, many of which don't speak English. But don't get me started. Anyhow, maybe Canadians and Americans bought land and properties in order to create gay-friendly businesses. Well, I thought the most of you, or the bulk of you, came here to retire. So I don't know about that second sentence. The third sentence, today there's a wide variety of attractions with this focus, including bars, restaurants, stores, nightclubs, and both budget and boutique hotels. That's the one sentence that I think is most accurate. But in overall, this introduction to me reads like something that was written by someone who has not had the experience, that has not actually been there. I know that because it doesn't look very well researched or currently updated or accurate for that matter. Or maybe I'm just too particular with the way I look at text. Anyhow, this has to do with, this is the first part of what I wanted to get into, because this brings us to the second part. Okay, so if you're traveling to Mexico and you're wanting to find out where is the trustworthy information? I mean, how are you as a first-time visitor or someone who just moved here are going to find the difference between trustworthy information and canned text like what this seems to be? And if I'm ruffling any feathers, if whoever wrote that text happens to watch this broadcast, I mean, by all means, please feel free to contact me and slap me on the face and tell me that I'm a horrible person. But ultimately, I hope that everyone wishes to get more involved with the ins and outs of the culture of wherever we happen to be in as much of an authentic way. This brings me to the second half of what I want to share with you today, which has to do with my ongoing research to keep you happy and entertained and coming back to Coffee and Headlines. A lot of it has to do with news. As you know, we're always looking at news sources that are as credible as they're going to get. And to bring those news to you, because we've found that not a lot of people here locally are connecting Mexican news with the English speaking community. I'm very happy to be one of the few, and I'm very happy to do that. But then there are so many nuances about Mexican culture that are absolutely fascinating to share and comment. I know that you enjoy that because you've what's the correct word? You've endured Sunday Fun Day, which is when a lot of times we end up having fun with our culture and the values and the things that are important in Mexico, our expressions, our slangs. So how do I tie that together with what I want to talk about? Well, when I go looking for interesting facts about Mexico, our culture, our language, our habits, I come across websites that are very trustworthy and credible based on what I read. And then there's a couple of websites that, again, all you're looking at is a freelance writer that is getting paid very little money to write just very generic text. So what I'd like to do is I will bring up 4 articles that I came across this afternoon that I'm going to react to. And I'm going to pick these articles because I felt that a lot of what they said is true and applicable. And if I see items in these articles that I don't know, I will be happy to say, well, I'm not sure about this one. And of course, as always, I will share the source with you in our show notes. So the first article, and please know that everything that we're doing today, I'm just rambling. I haven't actually looked at the articles in much detail, but they seem to be interesting. The first one, no, I want to save this one for last because it's really wonderful. The first website that I want to share with you is Culture Trip. I've seen the icon a number of times, and I think I recognize that icon. And this article, the title totally caught my eye. 11 Things You Should Never Say to a Mexican Ever. So let's see what we can learn from this article together, you and I. It was written by Stephen Woodman in November of 2017, so it's not a recent article, but let's dive in and unpack it and see what we find here. Item number 1, this is my first time in Central/South America. Well, I have to say that would make me cringe because indeed we are in North America. Mexico, Canada, and the United States are the 3 countries that are in the northern hemisphere. And I would append to this that, when it's really funny to think about people that say, well, I'm a proud American. Well, I'm a proud American too. I just happen to come from a different country. I'm sure there are a lot of people in Venezuela that consider themselves proud Americans because they live in America, the continent. But yeah, if you come to Mexico and you say to me, this is my first time in Central South America, I would cringe. Definitely, I would cringe. Mexican is a beautiful language. Well, this actually happened to us here at Coffee and Headlines. One day, somebody commented, why are you speaking Mexican, or why are you something? And I try not to cringe outwardly, but the spoken language is Spanish. The primary spoken language in the language is Spanish, but it's definitely not Mexican. Let's see what else we have here. How much money do you make? This writer argues that we are private and we don't talk about our personal finances, and that it is a taboo subject, and that asking strangers about their salary is a definite no-no. I would have to agree with this. Talking to anyone, I think in any culture, I personally approach this kind of topic with a lot of delicacy, and I certainly would not go into a French a foreign country and ask that question out loud, I may introduce it by saying, I'm going to ask you something that may ruffle your feathers. And if it does, please know that I'm not doing it with ill intent. I'm just ignorant. And then I might drop the question. Chilango. Okay, so chilango is an interesting word because it's the word that we use to describe a Mexico City resident. And again, calling someone a chilango when you are not a chilango is kind of like calling someone a fag when you're not gay. I mean, I have a lot of gay friends that call each other fags. I have African American friends that call each other the N word, and they can do that to one another or with one another. But, you don't want to call a chilango unless you are from Mexico City yourself. I don't like Mexican food. Well, this article starts by saying Mexicans are proud of our culinary culture, and I think that's true. I think you won't offend me, but I think there are some people that might feel offended if somebody said, I don't like Mexican food. Somebody would be inclined to say, well, what are you doing here? Why? Because food, the experience of eating, is something that is so important to us. Let's see what else we have. Estúpido. Oh, that I can totally agree with that. Let me get rid of that little box. Go away. Stupid doesn't seem like a harmful word in English, but it is harmful in Spanish. Stupid in Spanish, estúpido, is closer to its actual meaning. And it is very, very powerful in Spanish. It's not vulgar. I mean, it's certainly a word that I would use at the dinner table. So, but it's a hurtful word. Coger, to take. Coger and tomar both mean to take. Tomar also means to drink. But coger in Spanish is a synonym for having sex. So use it carefully. You don't coger a taxi, you tomar a taxi. Voy a tomar un taxi. I'm gonna hail a cab is a lot more proper. It won't get you into trouble. You might make some people giggle, but just know why that's the case. Now, there's this thing here about blasphemous curse words, and here's a place where I think I find it endearing when I hear somebody trying their Spanish curse words, and we've seen a lot of this when we do Sunday Fun Day. According to this writer, it's a no-no. And, I always try to be careful, and I always say, this is good for the dinner table. This is not good for the dinner table. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Oh, that is offensive. Well, not offensive, but, Cinco de Mayo has never been a huge holiday in Mexico. It's just a battle. It's a battle that took place in the city of Puebla. I think it is in the United States where it became a big commercial excuse, probably propagated by restaurants like Taco Bell and such, to do a sale of this, that, and the other. But Happy Cinco de Mayo has nothing to do with something powerful like the Independence Day, which is September 16. So yeah, that is a no-no. To an older stranger, yes, that's difficult to explain, but as you know, we have two forms of addressing people in Spanish. One is tú, and the other is usted. Usted is the more respectful way, and I certainly use it with strangers, regardless of their age. Well, if it's somebody that is my age, I always use tú, or I will always ask, te puedo tutear? Can I call you by the word tú? And that is a way of saying to someone, hey, can we be a little closer than just formal? And that is a nice way to break the ice sometimes. But I usually, if I go on an Uber, despite the age of the driver, I will say, buenas tardes, señor Uber, or buenas tardes, señora Uber, or señorita. But that's an interesting thing. If you meet a woman in Spanish, you don't call them señoras, even if they look like a señora. The difference, señora is a Mrs., señorita is a Miss. So for me, if I meet a woman, I will always, unless I know it's somebody's mother, if I'm meeting somebody's mother, then I will definitely say señora because she is obviously a Mrs. Or a mother. But actually, when you call older women señoritas, it a lot of times it's a way to be flattering of them. Um, I think the last one is hurry up, and definitely you don't ever want to hurry a Mexican. We're never in a hurry. Um, and this guy says patience is a virtue, especially in Mexico. Absolutely. Don't take it personally if people are late for appointments or guests turn up 2 to 3 hours after the party was supposed to start. Yeah, I totally get that. But that, and this is my personal opinion, that does that justify your being able to say, oh, so and so is running on Mexican time? I personally, I'm careful with my ethnic comments. You will never hear me say, "Oh, this guy tips like a Canadian," because I just don't think it's right. Um, I will say to someone, are you running on Mexican time? If that person is Mexican and I am Mexican, but I will not appropriate jokes like that, just like when we were talking earlier about the way a gay man might address another one or an African American person might address another one. That does not entitle us to appropriate that culture. And I don't mean to preach here. And these are just my personal observations on these articles. So you can agree or disagree, or hopefully have a nice conversation about them. Let me now turn to another one. 11 Mexican slang words only the locals know. Now, this comes from a place called alltherooms.com, and we're going to go through these. Let's see. We may have already discovered some of these. The first one's pendejo. Well, we all know what that means, and we've talked about the word. So we don't need to cover it again. Güey is a way to say dude in Spanish. Güey, sometimes spelled G-U with the two little dots E-Y, and sometimes spelled W-E-Y. It means dude or buddy or mate, and this is something that we use all the time. Chido en padre is like saying something's really awesome or something's really cool. But it really depends on your age. I mean, there's new expressions that have come forth that are the equivalent of this. And I know that chido en padre I can relate to as far as my age is concerned. But sometimes I'll say wicked in English or goody. And I know that I get looks like, I mean, were you born in the 40s or something like that? So, but these are good words. These are good words to know. Cabron. We've talked about that word before, and it's a good word. It's not a dinner table word, and I think you will enjoy reading this article on your own when you get to it. When somebody is buena onda, that means that this person is a good person, or someone that exudes good vibes. And it can be a person or a situation. If somebody comes to you and says, I just got hired by the job position or by the employer that I wanted, and you answer, que buena onda, you are referring to the situation being an awesome situation. Or if we're describing a person to another person, you say, well, the person asks, will I like your friend? And you say, yes, he is buena onda. That means that you're saying that your friend is a nice person or is a person with good vibes. La neta. La neta is a great expression because la neta can be an expression, an affirmation, or it can be a question. La neta means the truth. I can say, te voy a decir la neta, and that means I'm going to tell you the truth. And you're like, okay, well, tell me the truth. And I tell you something. And if that something surprises you or you find it unbelievable, you might actually ask, neta? As in, is that really the truth, la neta? And so it can be both a question and an affirmation. And this is definitely dinner table phrase, so you can certainly use it. Pinche, we love pinche because pinche you can add it to a lot of things. Pinche is part of a combination because it's the equivalent of saying fucking in English, but not in a sexual way. If I say estoy pinche cansado, that means I'm really tired. Or estoy pinche hambriento, that means I'm really hungry. Not for the dinner table, but it's a word that just feels good when you put it out there. Uh, Crudo is a word that we use in Spanish to say that we have a hangover. Estoy crudo or estoy cruda if you are a woman. That's the word that we use, and it's funny because in just about every Spanish speaking country in Latin America, there is a different word for the same thing. Um, Fresa is a curious word because fresa means strawberry, but somebody that is fresa is somebody that is very conservative or very uppity or somebody that doesn't take many risks. Um, and the phrase a huevo, a huevo is, well, a huevo means an egg, literally, but a huevo is something that we say when we want to say obviously and in a good way. Are we going to go out tonight? And you answer a huevo, that means that we're obviously going out tonight. We couldn't possibly be doing anything else. Not to be confused with having hueva, which means that you are feeling lazy. And again, this article, and oh my God, that's a big one. Chinga tu madre. We've talked about chinga tu madre before. That's about the most offensive thing you could say to someone in Mexico. So there is that article. And I think we've gotten to the end of it. Now, there's another article here called Mexican Slang Words, but I suspect this is going to have a lot of similar expressions, so I'm going to skip it. Actually, let me take a quick look through it. Let's see what we find. Güey, we talked about. Neta, we talked about. No manches. Oh, no manches is cute. And it means do not stain something. Do not stain. Manchar is to stain. But when you say no manches, it means like, are you kidding? Like, like if I say to you, so and so scammed me with $5,000 and now I'm really broke. And your friend answers, no manches, as in, no way, really? Are you serious? This really happened to you? So that's a cute phrase. We use it all the time. Orale, orale. Orale has so many purposes and so many intentions. I'm going to save this article because there are some expressions here that we could spend hours on. And orale is one of those because it can mean a lot of things. And this is confirmed by the description here. This word has many different purposes. Aguas. Aguas is another one that I'm going to skip. Aguas, it's so funny because this writer says that aguas is an expression that refers to being alert or aware of your surroundings. Well, that may be the case now. Aguas means watch out. But the origin of it, aguas, is plural for agua, which means water. And what happened, and this I believe, comes from Europe. From Spain, or maybe it came from colonial Mexico, when people didn't have toilets and they used to go and do their deed in a little bucket, and then they would just throw the water out the window. They would open the window and they would yell aguas, which means be careful, I'm about to spill everything that came out of my body and it may land on your head. So that's the origin of that particular phrase. We've talked about pinche, chido. We can skip that. There's a lot of interesting things here, and I'm certainly going to hold on to these articles because there's a lot of really wonderful information. The last article that I want to share with you comes from Matador Network. And Matador Network is the oddest name for one of the most extraordinary cultural travel websites you can find. I've been a fan of Matador Network for a long time. And while this network of websites, because they have several, may not necessarily hold your hand, when it comes to getting to a specific destination, I was just looking at the Puerto Vallarta entries and they haven't been updated in a number of years. I'm actually going to write them to see if they want to receive some of my freelance writing. But they have a lot of culture related articles, such as this one, 20 Dilemmas Only Mexicans Understand. And the beautiful thing about everything that I read in Matador Network is that it is written in a slightly funny, almost tongue in cheek way, but always believable. So I enjoy reading Matador Network because of that. So 20 dilemmas only Mexicans understand. The first one of them being, which salsa should I add to make this even more delicious? Red, green, chipotle, casera, Valentina, which one help? I totally agree. We have that dilemma and we have it frequently. The second one has to do with politics. Do I cancel my vote? Vote for the menos peor candidate or not show up? This has to do with our cultural reluctance to get involved in politics. You know, Mexicans traditionally in the past have had such little faith in the political system. It's nice to see that this is changing. But in general, when it comes to getting to the booths and who are we going to vote for, a lot of us get lost in indecision. The third one, when I get offered more food and I'm already stuffed, do I say the truth and hurt that? Do I say the truth and hurt that person's feeling, or do I make a supernatural effort to finish another full serving? This is very true because hosts in Mexico are very generous, and food is one of those things that is handled very generously. Many, many times have I left a dinner table in which I've eaten more than I should have because I didn't want to hurt somebody's feelings. Let's see. Do I get there on time to impress everyone and risk being the only one there and get bored? Or instead, do I join the crowd and arrive late to the event? Well, this speaks volumes as to our habit of not always being on time. And so forth and so on. There's a bunch of really amazing things here. Do I have eggs or quesadillas for breakfast? See, a lot of these things are very mundane. But that's the beautiful thing about many, many articles in Matador Network that I strongly recommend. I think this gives you a taste, hopefully, as to number one, the kinds of things that I go looking at to bring content to you, and number two, I hope they give you a glimpse as to all these things that I love sharing with you here at Coffee and Headlines. And I certainly love talking about Mexican culture in general. And the things that I don't know, as you well know, I love researching. So this brings us to the end of this totally rambled, totally improvised Mexican Culture Thursday pre-recorded episode. Tomorrow morning will be Friday, and tomorrow morning I'll be back with you live, of course. And it'll be a pleasure to see you. I will have read all your comments and I will be up to speed, and I'll bring you a nice overview of what kind of important news took place during the week during my absence, while Luna, of course, is looking after the fort. So thank you very much for allowing me to just share some basic thoughts about culture in general and Mexican culture in particular. What I get out of this, if ever I get a chance to travel abroad again and visit other countries, is that, you know, it really pays a lot to do a lot of research when you're into it, because once you get there, the experience is a lot more fulfilling. It also pays a lot to connect with real local people, people from the country or the cities that you're visiting, just to get as much of an authentic experience, if that is your cup of tea. If you choose to live in a bubble just surrounding yourself with the things that you're familiar with, well, the beautiful thing about this city is that there are comfort levels for everyone. It's a huge bay. There's room for all of us. But if you happen to tune in, then these are the kinds of things that we love talking about here at Coffee and Headlines. So thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow morning live as usual.